Welcome and thank you for attending today's virtual press conference. My name is Gloria Nluadum and I am the Congresswoman's Communications Director. Today we are pleased to be joined by Congresswoman Cori Bush, Sarah John, Executive Director of St. Louis Interfaith Committee on Latin America, Nicole Cortez, Co-Director and Attorney for the MICA Project, Alex and Carly Garcia, Pastor Becky Turner, the Christ Church UCC in Maplewood. At this time, I will now turn the press conference over to Congresswoman Cori Bush. Congresswoman, please begin.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for being here as we stand together with Alex Garcia and his family. To begin, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah John and Nicole Cortez, who will share some background on Alex's case and bring you up to speed on all the work they have been doing over the last few years. Sarah and Nicole.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for being here today. My name is Nicole Cortez and I'm Alex Garcia's immigration attorney. I'm a co-founder and co-director of the Migrant and Immigrant Community Action Project, the MICA project here in St. Louis.
Thank you, Congresswoman, and thank you everyone for your time. My name is Sarah John. I'm the Executive Director of the St. Louis Interfaith Committee on Latin America, or IFCLA, and I'm very honored to be the organizer for Alex's case.
I'll just take a few minutes to give a little bit of background about Alex. Alex came to the United States for the first time from Honduras in the year 2000. He was fleeing violence and poverty, and like many others who don't have any options to come to the United States legally, crossed the border, the southern border of the United States, and was detained by immigration authorities. He was placed in immigration detention and then quickly ordered removed by an immigration judge, given an order of deportation. He was taken back to Honduras by those authorities and then later came to the United States again and crossed this time without being detected and came to the United States to work and in hopes of supporting his family back in Honduras. He ended up in Poplar Bluff, Missouri, where a few years later he met his now wife, Carly. And they came to see me after they had gotten married, and they hoped to be able to fill out the paperwork, to be able to apply for Alex's lawful status in the United States, much like Carly's parents had done when she was younger. And they hoped that Alex could someday become a US citizen. But because of that deportation order that Alex had received when he first entered the United States, they were ineligible to do anything. The immigration policies of this country didn't allow any way for Alex to apply for legal status. And as such, they sent them on their way with that information. A few years later, they reached out again because Alex had been detained by ICE, helping someone else appear for an ICE check-in. After that, we were able to speak to ICE about Alex's case, and in their discretion, they decided to grant Alex a stay of removal, which meant that he was protected from deportation for a year at a time for several years up until 2017. So in 2017, under the Trump administration, the policies and exercise of discretion and the priorities for deportation were changed, and that the renewal of his stay of removal was denied. Alex was given 2 weeks to appear in St. Louis at the local ICE office for removal for deportation, and his family was unlikely to ever see him again after that, unless they were to relocate. So it really meant permanent separation for them. Sarah?
Thanks, Nicole. It was around that time that I had been working with multiple congregations in the area who, in light of a pretty contentious presidential campaign, were discerning their faith values and trying to understand what those values propelled them to do in light of what had become an aggressive, violent, and traumatic increase in immigration enforcement that was impacting communities far beyond St. Louis, but also here in St. Louis. So drawing on my organization's roots from the 1980s, where we were actively involved in the sanctuary movement at that time, we had been having conversations about offering our houses of worship as sanctuary, as protection from deportation when unjust and outdated laws threaten our communities. So for many congregations, that was a process of education. That was a process of accompanying, of engaging and building relationships with a community that many had not had an opportunity to reach yet. So after considering multiple, I would say limited options, as Nicole had mentioned, that's when I had the opportunity to meet Alex and Carly. And after going through sort of what sanctuary might be and how that might be a tool for fighting for this family's permanent unity, Alex made the decision to move into sanctuary at Christ Church in order to fight for that permanent right to stay with his family in Missouri. So since then, we have built a huge community of support locally and nationwide. Currently, there are over 4,000 people that support Alex and that are fighting for this family and other families. We are building power and organizing through multiple strategies until this family, and as Carly and Alex have expressed multiple times, and all immigrant families are free to live and love in the fullest expression of human dignity.
Private bill that Congresswoman Cori Bush is introducing today would provide a pathway to legal status, a pathway to citizenship for Alex, enabling him to stay with his family forever.
Private bills like this one meet immediate needs of Alex, and would similar bills be introduced for others, would meet those needs of dozens of other people who are living in sanctuary like Alex. They also pave the way for broader reforms that decriminalize immigrants and all communities of color. So with that, we are so thankful, Congresswoman, for your leadership.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah and Nicole, for being here today and for your tireless work and advocacy on behalf of Alex and his family. I extend my deepest gratitude to both of you, as well as everyone at the St. Louis Interfaith Committee on Latin America and the Micah Project. I'd also like to thank Pastor Becky Turner of the Christ Church UCC in Maplewood and all those who have been standing with Alex and Carly for so long. I'm so proud to stand with you all today as we introduce legislation for immigration relief for Alex, because he belongs here. To the Garcia family, the pain that these long 3.5 years have brought is unimaginable. But know that you are not alone. Today, I want to make clear that St. Louis bears it with you, supports you, and is fighting with you. The power of our community is limitless. And to Alex, we thank you for entrusting us with your story. Our immigration system as it stands today is a perpetrator of crimes against humanity. It is a system that separates children from parents, puts kids in cages, incentivizes dangerous crossings through unforgiving terrain, and offers limited pathways to citizenship. All the while, private detention centers profit off the struggles of migrant communities. ICE and Customs and Border Patrol have created a culture of perpetual fear that terrorizes immigrant communities. It is a terror that has led us to this moment. Alex Garcia is a father. He is a husband. He has lived in this country for 14 years. For 11 of those years, he lived safely at home with his family until 2017, as we just heard. The Trump administration's immigration crackdown led to the denial of Alex's request for a stay of removal. After 11 years, Alex and his family's lives were upended. He could not safely return to Honduras, a nation he fled amidst violence and extreme poverty. He could not fathom losing his family. His family could not fathom losing him. In this moment of peril, it was the power of community that intervened. Christ Church UCC, led by Pastor Becky, opened its doors and offered sanctuary. Sarah John of IFPLA and so many others who made sure to make it clear that Alex belongs here. And we appreciate you all for that. For more than 3 years, Alex has been separated from his family. That's more than 3 years that his wife, Carly, has been vaulted into carrying the heavy weight of raising young children without her husband and their father. That's more than 3 years that his children have endured the a trauma that will affect them as they grow into adults. That happened here on our watch. 3.5 years of his young children being asked, why does your dad live in a church? It's a question they don't have an answer to. They don't know why their dad cannot come home. But it's not just them. There is no right answer. There is no right answer for a system that is holding their father hostage because our country refuses to grant him the right to live freely. There is no right answer for why Alex and his family are living this cruel reality. Alex is a person who is beloved by the community. Beloved. When asked what Alex means to them, a community member said that Alex Garcia is the finest human being I've met in my 72 years. Another wrote, I never realized the damage our policies have done till I met Alex and his amazing family. I have never met a kinder, more deserving man. He is a gift to us all. He's a gift to all of us and this country he calls home. Yet another wrote, Alex fled extreme poverty and violence and has led a quintessential American life in small town Missouri. He is the most brave and kind person I've ever met. Alex is the kind of neighbor you want living next door. He and his family deserve to live together right here in the heartland of our beautiful, big-hearted country. So personally, I've known Alex and Carly for some time now. But when I met Alex and his family again, just last week at Christ Church, I was so moved by his compassion, his love for his family, and his unbreakable spirit. It's a spirit I know well. It's the spirit that carried me through being unhoused and raising 2 children as a single mother. And it is that spirit that our office will carry with us as we move forward with this effort. Today, we have introduced a private piece of legislation. Private, meaning that it only pertains to Alex, that would grant Alex permanent residency here and would allow him to reunite with his wonderful family. Even before it becomes law, the bill can help Alex get home. Upon passage out of the House Judiciary Subcommittee on Immigration and Citizenship, Alex would be granted a stay of removal for the duration of the 117th Congress. Now, the road ahead will not be easy. Since 2007, only 4 private bills have been signed into law. But that will not discourage, it won't discourage us, because what we see, when we see that 4 of those private bills have been signed into law, is hope. We see it as a possibility and as an opportunity. And today, we are extending a hand of partnership to the Biden administration to say, Alex is one of us. He deserves dignity and freedom. And just like we expect you to end all family separations, Mr. President, we also expect you to help us allow Alex to be with his. We are fighting for Alex because Alex belongs here. Because his family does not deserve this. No family deserves this. Because our community needs to be a place where immigrants are welcomed, safe, and have what they need to live a decent life. What is happening to Alex is unacceptable, and it is the manifestation of a system that criminalizes the experiences of Black and brown immigrants, that criminalizes the experience of human migration for no good reason at all, and for reasons that have to do with systemic systems of white supremacy that we must dismantle. Bringing Alex home and so many others like him forced into sanctuary by cruel immigration policies is a priority in that work. This will not be an easy fight, but that's never stopped us before, and it won't stop us today. We stand with Alex, and we will not rest until he is free and protected from the most inhumane elements of our country's immigration system. We reiterate loudly and clearly that Alex belongs here. Now, we will hear directly from Alex and Carly Garcia.
I believe from the bottom of my heart that Congresswoman Cori and her team will do everything in their power for my freedom. I hope the private bill she is introducing for me will be the pathway for me to stay with my family forever. I miss spending time with my family outside of the church walls. It has been very hard for me watching my babies grow and learn without me being by their side. It means more than words can explain how I feel about the promise she has made to me, my family, and other families living the same injustice as we are. Thank you, Congresswoman Cori, for being our champion and fighting for my freedom and my family. Because we aren't just fighting to be heard. We are fighting for freedom and family unity for all those living under broken and this law.
I'm so grateful to have met Congresswoman Cori and her team. She is the champion that we have all been waiting for, to take a stand against racism and fight against the injustices we have all endured over the years. I am so glad she is introducing a private bill that will allow my husband to stay because existing laws have failed us over and over again. Outdated and unjust immigration laws forced my family's separation. We've been living in this cycle of trauma for the last 3.5 years, and it has felt unbearable. Seeing my babies cry for their father and seeing my husband unable to meet their needs because he can't leave the church. No mother should have to endure that. We just want the freedom to live our lives as a whole family. It means the world to me that Representative Cori and her team are so eager to help me pick up the pieces of my family that were torn apart by the inhumane and unjust laws. We know she is fighting for bigger reforms too, so that no family has to go through what we have been living. Words can never express the gratitude and love I have for this strong, amazing woman and her team. Thank you so much, Congresswoman Cori, for all that you are doing.
Hello, everyone. I am Pastor Becky Turner, and I'm a pastor at Christ Church, United Church of Christ in Maplewood, Missouri. When Alex arrived at the church 3.5 years ago, when Sarah brought him to us, he was our guest. Our whole community embraced him, and we did our best to welcome him. And we did this because it is what the Bible commands us to do. It's what God expects of us, to welcome the stranger and give shelter, to treat the traveler as we would any member of our own community. We provided safety, but it was never a home. For the first year, more than a year, we hardly ever saw Alex smile. It was so hard for Carly to tear their crying children away from him to make the trip home each Sunday afternoon. It was gut-wrenching to witness. But when his wife and children moved to Maplewood to be near him, the smile began to come out. His body relaxed a bit. For us, it was like he was a new person, but in fact, he was able to be more of the person that he really was. One that we hadn't seen. This father and husband loves his family more than one could ever describe. He needs them and they need him desperately. It is my honor to know this beautiful family, but the church had the easy part. All we had to do was love some beautiful people. No one should have to live within church walls for 3.5 years. Family separation under the Trump administration took many different forms, and this was one of them. Had Alex been deported, there is a very good chance he would not have seen his children again, at least not until they were adults. And that is inhumane. We provided the only way that we knew to prevent them from being torn apart. But living in a church should have been a very short-term solution. No family should go through what they have been through. And it's they who have taught our church what love really means. They've taught us courage, persistence, community, compassion, faith. I have watched as Alex gave away the food that was donated to him when someone would come to the door saying they needed food. I would watch as he set up beds for the unhoused on cold winter nights. I watched as he would take care of our church members who needed something fixed or built or found. Alex, the guest, quickly became Alex, the host. He is a beloved member of our family now. He should never have received that order of deportation. The country needs more people like Alex. We are so grateful to Congresswoman Bush for her efforts to give Alex a pathway to citizenship so that his family can remain together forever, as it should be.
Thank you, Pastor Becky Turner. We're now going to open it up for questions. This is an incredibly important and personal case, so we would appreciate if everyone could keep their questions on topic. And please remember to submit your questions for our speakers in the chat. And as a reminder, I will call on reporters who have submitted questions to ask their questions live. Our first question is from Catherine Hessel from KTVI. Catherine, please unmute yourself to ask your question.
Hi, yeah, thanks so much for having me. My question is for Carly and Alex. They talked a little bit about those 2 weeks that you guys were given before Alex had to appear, knowing that he would possibly get deported and that you guys may never see him again. What were those 2 weeks like, if you guys can describe that?
receiving the letter saying that Alex needed to come to the ICE office for removal, it was really hard. It's really hard to think about that feeling. It's because there wasn't any options for us at that time. He was going to be deported. There wasn't a if he was to be deported. They were planning on putting him on a plane and sending him out of our country so that we would no longer see him. Those 2 weeks, I would not wish it on anyone. I still, to this day, live remembering those days, remembering what it was like to open that letter. And it's crippling every time I think about it.
Thank you. Our next question is from Maria from the Washington Post. Maria, you may unmute your line and ask your question.
Okay, thank you all for having this. I appreciate it. I guess I just have 2 quick questions. Carly and Alex, I wanted to thank you for being here. I wanted to ask you, Carly, since you're a U.S. citizen, can you sponsor him for citizenship? Is that an option?
Right now, it's not because he already has a deportation. Nicole can definitely talk more about that if you need more information.
Okay, that would be great, just to understand, if he can get a waiver or something, if because you have that right, and people with deportation orders have been sponsored in the past. I would love to know more about that. And then, Congresswoman, the question for you, you're right about of course, about the private bills and the success they haven't had. And you have about, I think, 60,000 undocumented immigrants in Missouri. So how are you explaining to them, I mean, there are a lot of people who would like a private bill, I think. But why, is this the only one you filed? Are you planning to file others for the other folks who are in your state?
Sorry. Yes, this is the only private bill that we filed. Alex is in sanctuary in our district, and Alex is in sanctuary, so that is why we are moving forward with this. But our work is to make sure that we are helping to support our immigrant families and our undocumented community members all across not only the state, but the country. But this particular situation, I met Carly a few years ago and as an activist, and she told me about her situation, what was going on with her family. And so for me, it was just wait until I get some power behind me to be able to help this family. And now, I didn't let go of that. We did what we could, just on the activist side. But now I'm in a position to be able to do more. And I made that promise to this family, and I'm going to keep it because he belongs here.
And I'll just jump in, Maria, and answer, I'll give a little more context to your question about Carly's ability to petition for Alex. So as I mentioned, that was their intent when they came to see me at the beginning of the press conference. I'm not sure you were on at that point, but because of the deportation order that was given to Alex when he first attempted to come to the United States, the only existing option for Carly as a US citizen to petition for him would be for him to leave the United States, remain outside for 10 years, and then Carly could begin the petition process that would then require her to request a waiver. So he's not eligible to request a waiver at now, as some undocumented folks are who don't have the prior order, because he was issued the deportation order and then re-entered after that time. So it's sometimes referred to as the permanent bar, but it's a bar that can only be waived after 10 years outside the United States. We did file the first petition for Alex and Carly. It's called an I-130 petition. It's a petition that you can file for a foreign spouse. And in fact, the agency, we believe because Alex had taken sanctuary, the agency has not adjudicated that petition in 2.5 years. That would have just begun the process for them and had that initial approval done in the event the law changes in their favor.
Thank you. The next question is from Naseem from the Post-Dispatch. Naseem, you may unmute your line and ask your question.
Hi, thank you. I just had a question. Former Representative William Lacey Clay introduced a somewhat similar bill in 2019 to rescind the order of deportation and grant Alex permanent residency. It appears that bill stalled after it was referred to the committee. What can be done this time to ensure that this bill passes further?
So, this bill itself, thank you, Naseem. This bill itself, is not really different. But we understand introducing a private bill alone is just one step in a complex process when Congress seeks to provide immigration relief. And introduction alone, it won't bring Alex home. We understand that. But the thing is, he needs a partner and a champion in Congress. And my office is committed to showing up for him as we have since before I was sworn in. We not only introduced the bill, but we are in close conversations with Chairman Jerry Nadler, as well as Chairwoman Zoe Loughran and her staff on the House Judiciary, Immigration and Citizenship Committee. We're doing everything in our power to ensure that Alex's case is a priority. So I think that is something that that will be different.
Thank you. Okay, our next question is from Doyle from the Riverfront Times. Doyle, you may unmute your line and ask your question.
Hi, thank you. Before the Trump administration, just getting a private bill introduced was often enough to get a delay in the deportation. Is that the situation that we're in again under the new administration? I mean, whether this gets passed or not, is it just getting introduced? Is that going to be enough to delay the deportation order?
It needs to pass out of the subcommittee. That's why we're working with the subcommittee. So it has to pass there first.
Just a quick follow-up. Do we have any kind of timetable on when this might happen, when he might be able to leave?
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, sorry. Is there any kind of timetable on when you hope this might happen, or when he might be able to actually walk out of the church? No. Let me try.
Yeah. Nicole, would you have an answer for that?
So no, I don't have an answer about when potentially that stay of removal could kick in because of the passage out of committee, or out of the subcommittee, I'm sorry. There was guidance issued late last week that gives ICE some new instructions about how to handle folks in enforcement actions and what to do and not do. We are in conversations with St. Louis ICE about what might be done for Alex, separate from, all intertwined in the same fight, but separate from the private bill efforts in the interim as we continue our efforts with the private bill and other efforts to get permanent legal status for Alex.
Okay, our last question for the day is from Ray, again from the Riverfront Times. Ray, you may unmute your line.
Hi, Congresswoman. Have you had communication with Congresswoman Ann Wagner or Senators Roy Blunt or Josh Hawley about your bill and or about Alex?
Right now, I am focused on introducing the bill for Alex to begin the process to get him home. I do plan to speak with the senators in the very near future to ensure we're doing everything, everything possible to get him home safely and from up under this threat of deportation. But right now, we're getting this bill done today. That's our focus.
Sorry. Thank you so much, everyone, for your questions. I believe we got to all of the questions in the chat. And that wraps up our question and answer session. Congresswoman Bush, I'll turn it over to you for closing remarks.
Sure. Thank you, Gloria. Before we close, to those of you tuning in at home, I want to thank you for joining us today. To our partner, Sarah John, Executive Director for St. Louis Interfaith Committee on Latin America, IFLA, Nicole Cortez, Co-Director and Attorney for the Micah Project, and Pastor Becky Turner of Christ Church UCC in Maplewood. I know I speak for my entire office when I say that we are so grateful to be doing this work together. And lastly, to the Garcia family, know that our office is doing everything within our power to deliver a just future for all of you. We are here for you, whatever you may need, and we will continue to work for justice, not only for Alex, but to deliver a just immigration system for all people who seek home right here in this country. Thanks, everyone.